All right, we are back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast, talking about the red hot New York Yankees. Join me today, big friend of the podcast. If you were a big Yankee Twitter guy, he is definitely someone you have to follow. Dan Federico is here. Dan, how are you?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? Thanks for having me back.
Not a problem. And I got to ask you first off the bat here, if we went back to, I'd say right after the Josh Donaldson trade, and there's a lot of mixed feelings about the Yankee offseason here. If I told you that on record day, June 6th, the Yankees would be 39-15, had the best record in baseball, what would you say to me?
I mean, listen, it's something that would have shocked me, to be honest. I mean, I know this offseason didn't grab the headlines that a lot of people wanted, at least in a positive way. Shortstop was the big thing. Oh, they're going to get Correa. Maybe they'll turn around and get one of the other guys, Cortes or Trevor Story. If not, we'll go to first base, maybe Freddie Freeman. Instead, they bring back Rizzo, obviously trade for Donaldson. Didn't grab the headlines, like I said, but, I mean, so far it's worked out as good as it could have.
Yeah, absolutely has. I think the thing for me that's the most surprising this team has been the pitching, just because there's a team, you look at the lineup up and down, you see all these big bats, like, oh, the Yankees in the past have won with out-slugging people, taking advantage of bad pitching staffs. Here, they have one of the best ERAs in baseball, have a tremendous starting rotation. What do you think about this Yankee pitching phenomenon here?
I mean, the all five starting pitchers, you can make the case. I mean, I don't think it'll happen, but they could each be all-stars the way they're pitching, and their numbers truly do reflect that. I mean, you knew going into the season, obviously the questions last year, Garrett Cole, was it the sticky stuff, was it injuries? You still hope he's going to be that number one. You're paying him to be that number one, so you could always rely on him. But then you have Sevy coming back from an injury. You have Tyon coming back from injuries. You have Monty, who's been good but also up and down. And then, of course, Nestor Cortes, who showed flashes last year, but was it real, was it not? You just don't know. And in the span of an offseason, this group has turned around and become the best starting pitching staff in baseball. And they are the key behind the way this team has been winning. Yes, the bats have been good, and they've been putting together better at-bats and have been a collective unit in that regard. But, I mean, I think this team really starts and ends with the starting unit.
Yeah, absolutely. I also give Brian Cashman credit here for putting more of an emphasis on the defense of this team, especially on the infield and behind the plate, because I feel like one thing I've noticed here at this group is that especially behind the plate, the catching combo of Jose Trevino and Kyle Higashioka has done a much better job with the pitch frame stuff. I feel like that's an area Gary Sanchez struggled last year. I feel like that's also helping the staff.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you go up the middle, you think, add catcher Trevino and Higashioka, who are both, what they are as hitters, but obviously an upgrade over Sanchez behind the plate. And you always have to shout out Isaiah Kiner for left at shortstop. He's been super effective on defense and has shown some flashes in the box as well. But, I mean, bringing him in, you knew you were bringing him in for his defense. And then that, at the same time, slides Glaber over to his natural position at second. And then, of course, center field. I mean, I think I saw the other day Aaron Judge has played 42%, I think it was, of his games in center. And, he's not a natural center fielder, but he's taken it on extremely well as well. So that defense up the middle, which has been a weakness a lot of the time, has really improved. So that's something that has reflected as well for the Yankees in a positive way.
Absolutely. And obviously, I think the story of this team right now, we'll get to judge in a minute here, is Nestor Cortes, because obviously last year he gets a spot in the rotation with all the injuries. He pitches well. Going into the spring, he had to basically fight for a job. I think if Domingo Germán doesn't get hurt, he might not even be in the rotation. Here he is. They're now 5-1, 1.5 ERA, 68 strikeouts, 14 walks, and 60 innings pitched this year. I mean, right now, if you were building also, he might actually start the game out in LA next month. How crazy has it been to see what Nestor Cortes has become?
I mean, you love the flash of like a Garrett Cole, just that big money ace throwing gas all day. But there's just something about a guy who's probably, if you pass him on the street, you wouldn't know he was a major league pitcher. That's for sure. Just like somebody who's in there doing crafty things and not only, getting people out. Like, it's one thing if he was a reliever, switching up his timing and all that and getting some big outs in late innings. This guy's doing it for an extended period of time over games. And now it's an extended period of time over seasons, because this dates back to last year. I mean, when he came up with starting towards the second half of the season last year, he put together a 2.90 ERA. I mean, he was getting it done, and he's just taken it to another level. I mean, his fastball cutter combo has just been insane. He knows how to use his pitches, where to locate them. Again, he's not throwing high heat. He's not, wowing people away with what he does on the mound. He's just so effective in what he does. And it just seems like at this point, not only is he comfortable in the pitcher he is, and it's not like he's trying to do anything outside of his comfort zone, but he's excelling in that role. So he's, like you said, taking the league by storm. He's definitely going to be in the running to start. I think it would be a fantastic story if he does. And another one of those guys, clubhouse guy. Everybody has his back. Everybody's rooting for him. And it kind of just ties into, again, right thing, right time. Everything's clicking, and it's showing in the results for him.
Yeah, absolutely is. And the other guy, I think, from the pitching staff has fascinated me because I know the bullpen's had a run of injuries here. What the Yankees have gotten out of Clay Holmes is incredible because, he's been lights out all year. Now he stepped into the closer's role. The role is Chapman hurt. He's dominated in that role as well. And, it makes you wonder here, even when Chapman returns, can you take Clay Holmes out of that role?
It's hard because Chapman, a couple of rare instances when he struggled, not rare instances when he struggled, but the rare instances when they've moved him not as closer. So there's precedent there, but not a lot. But I don't think you could deny Clay Holmes right now. He's on a streak, 25 plus innings where he hasn't given up an earned run, and he's just been lights out. And it's one of those things you look back and you think of Hoy Park, where when they traded him for Clay Holmes, everybody was up in arms, myself included. Not necessarily up in arms, but just he was excelling so much in AAA, and the Yankees needed hitting, middle infield help, and they just didn't want to go with him. Obviously, they saw something in Holmes where they knew it would be able to translate with Matt Blake well. And again, credit to him. Not only has he reformed the starting unit of 5 pitchers, but his bullpen, what he's getting out of Clay Holmes has been insane, and he's just been one of the best relievers in baseball. And it's going to be a conversation because, you have to factor in money and what Chapman has done in the past, but I just don't see how they could justify replacing Holmes with Chapman once he does return.
Yeah, absolutely. And the lineup right now, obviously, they just got Giancarlo Stanton back. Donaldson's back recently. The guy for the whole year has been Aaron Judge. I remember the whole story at the beginning of the year was how could he turn down this money from the Yankees? They gave him the huge contract offer. He said about himself, and it's a pretty good bet so far. 21 homers, 42 RBIs, leads the league in home runs right now. I feel like the price on him has definitely gone up, and it's incredible seeing what he can do when he's actually, staying fully healthy and not getting injured.
You really have to respect, I think, the fact that he bet on himself, and he said, listen, I'm not this injury-riddled guy who only puts up numbers when I play half the games. No, he said, I'm going to come into the season, do my thing, and he's doing it in spades. I'm on record. You could check my tweets from back in the day. 2017, that season, he should have won MVP, was Rookie of the Year. I wasn't saying Judge was going to fall off, but I just never thought he'd be able to replicate that season. He was that good his rookie year. But 2022, he's taken it to another level. He has been fantastic. And that's when you factor in, again, like I said before, he's playing center field a lot. I feel like multiple times a week this guy's playing in center field. So what he's been able to do, carry this team offensively, not carry them, everybody's kind of pulling their weight, but he's been the driving force. He's been the engine of this team. So what he's done, he's added, you could justify that he's added another $100 million on this contract he could ask for. That's how well he's playing. Now, will he hold up? There's still a lot of the season left, but you can only go with and judge what he's done so far, and that's been being fantastic. So he has money in space, this contract he's going to get next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that's also impressive with the Yankees here is they've started to get bit by the injury bug quite a bit. We saw Stanton and Donaldson miss time. They have injuries on the pitching side. Is there an injury right now that concerns you the most about what's going on with them?
It was almost like too good to be true in the beginning. They were willing everybody to be, especially for this Yankees team, where they've dealt with injuries these last few years all the time. And I know they got through different people in the training staff, and they're trying to take the approach differently and bring in different types of players. They got rid of guys like Luke Voigt, who may be more prone to injuries, where, you bring in somebody else. So, it's funny when you think about it, even with the Donaldson and Stan, these injuries, I still think, not the issue, but I still gear back towards the bullpen, where you lose a Chad Green and a Luis Heel, who, he wasn't getting that experience or that playing time early on in the majors, but I was steadfast in believing that he was going to be a major part of this bullpen at some point this season, Luis Heel. So losing him was tough. Chad Green's a battle-tested veteran. His numbers may have not been where you expect, but he's somebody you're going to trust in those big situations. He's done it time and time again. So losing the two of them has been huge. Obviously, Chapman, like you said, too, has been, bitten with the injury bug. I think they have a lot of depth in the minors, and they have guys who could step up in their bullpen as well that are currently on the roster. So I don't know if this would necessitate, let's say, a trade, even though I wouldn't be surprised if they look that way as well as we get to July. But I think the bullpen is where, you want to have as many arms as possible. And when you lose a couple big ones, man, options start running out. So that's something I would keep an eye on. But at the same time, right now, everything's clicking in the right way. So I think they're just going to stay status quo, go with who they have, just elevate people in terms of the depth chart and bring some guys up from the minors.
Yeah, also, one thing I also want to ask you about here is the lineup as a whole, because, obviously you got some big performance at the top from Judge and Giancarlo, and Giancarlo's been healthy here. But I feel like the line's very top-heavy, and, that bottom half, just of late, 5 to 9 has been an issue for them. What are your feelings about the lineup as a whole?
I mean, like you said, it's that bottom half, that 7, 8, 9 in the hole has been tough. And they're getting, you think of somebody like Jose Trevino playing fantastic. He's one of those guys that I feel like will always be like, oh, he was a Yankee back in old timers day. Even if it's 1-2 years with the Yankees, but the way he's playing, is he going to be able to keep that up? I don't know. I mean, just based off his history, probably not. But then at the same time, you hope the market correction with an Anthony Rizzo or Josh Donaldson, where, they're struggling a little bit, but they'll eventually get back up to where you expect them to be. But at the same time, this Hicks, Joey Gallo outfield situation is just not going to work. And I know they like Hicks and they give him the big money and they think he brings other things to the table, whether that's being a switch hitter, drawing walks, whatever. But the two of them at the bottom of the lineup has hurt them. And it's surprising how well they've been playing when you have two big holes like that. And those are Aaron Hicks and Joey Gallo are guys you expect to bring you value. So it's not hard. It's surprising to see how well they've been playing when you have two serious black holes like that at the bottom of your lineup.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Joey Gallo, 6 home runs, 9 RBIs is not what you're paying for when you get a guy like that.
No, and it's something where, I think when they traded for him and he was rumored to the Yankees for years, a couple of years that people thought, oh, man, he'd be a great fit in the short porch. I remember when they brought him in, I didn't want him to come in and think all right, he's going to be the 3-hitter, be this, huge difference maker. I thought he would be perfect in that 5, 6, 7 role where, listen, you're going to take those strikeouts and that's what's going to happen. He's not going to have a high batting average, but you put him in Yankee Stadium, he's going to hit 35 home runs, driving a bunch of runs, walk a bunch. But this year, he's not even doing the home run stuff, which you expect out of him. So it's been tough. You have to factor in whether it's fair or not, these potential, I don't want to say mental issues. I'm not trying to, say he has problems, but, they were documented this offseason that he has a lot in his head going on and he takes things personally. So you have to factor that in when you're in a big market like New York. And it's something where, listen, he may not work here, but there may be still other teams that could find value in his skill set, which unfortunately this season they've been highlighted more his shortcomings. So I don't know what you do there. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I can't see them bringing him back unless it was for super cheap, which I think Joey Gallo would get a significant contract on the market just for what he brings. So, it's been interesting, this experiment, I guess you could say. And right now, it's not really working for him.
Yeah, it's not. I feel like for sure you need at least one outfield at the deadline because, like you said before, playing Aaron Judge in Latin center field is a risk because he's a big dude out there and he's a chance he could get hurt, and that really sinks your whole offense here. So do you think they can get away with adding just one outfield at the deadline? I think they have to try and find two.
I think, a big thing about this is Miguel Andujar. Now, there were reports coming out this weekend that he requested a trade, which, in my opinion, is understandable. Like we've been discussing, Joey Gallo struggling, Aaron Hicks struggling. Hey, Miguel Andujar comes up. I'm not saying he was significantly better than them because if you look at their OPS rankings or numbers, they were pretty similar between Hicks, Andujar, and Gallo. And then you also have to factor in, how much you're paying Hicks and Gallo compared to Andujar. But I think he did deserve a longer look despite people coming back from the injured list, just playing him regularly out in left field. I think if you hang on to him and you have guys like the Yankees and Tim LeCastro, or even Esteban Florial, who still gets his chances once in a while at the big league level, I don't think they need two. I think they could still get away with just bringing in one. I do think probably a center fielder would be best, but I don't think they would pigeonhole themselves in saying, oh, we need to bring in just a center fielder when you have somebody like Tim LeCastro or Esteban Florial in the system. I could see, Andrew Benintendi, he's been rumored. he'd be a really good fit, I think, in the lineup. I think in Ian Happ, where he's somebody who could play center field, you bring him in, and also he's pretty flexible around the diamond as well. I could see names like that won't cost a ton to bring them in. Definitely short-term pieces that could kind of help round out the bottom half of this lineup. That would be the way to go. But I think it would only be one. Like I could see only a Benintendi or a Happ, not both of them.
Yeah, let me ask you a question here in terms of the trade candidate I just thought of, and this is something I don't know if Brian Cashman will do because he tends to hug the prospects a little bit, does not want to give up big value here. But I feel like a guy like Brian Reynolds would be perfect for this Yankee team because you could put him in center field, he could be here for a couple of years, and this is a team that's as good as this is. I feel like this is worth taking the big swing. Do you think they would engage the Pirates here and be willing to pay what it takes to get a guy like Reynolds over here?
Well, see, the thing with Brian Reynolds is, I mean, he was a hot name in the offseason, especially off of what he did last year. Or in really multiple years now, he's been putting together strong seasons. And then you have to figure out, or you have to factor in how much control he has left, right? So going into this season, I tweeted out, I thought it could take, a Jason Dominguez and maybe, an Oswald Peraza. Like, it would take a lot to pry him from Pittsburgh. He's been struggling a lot this year. I think it's dropped his value. He's somebody who I think would be worth the flyer because you could, again, you're bringing him in, especially now that he's struggling. You're not expecting him to come in, bat lead off and hit 330 and drive in runs and play a fantastic center field. You probably bring him in, bat him seventh, and just be a solid bottom of the order batter. And then you hope that he could find his way back to what he did a season ago and 2 years ago. I mean, that could be something that would be interesting. And I don't think it would cost as much now. I mean, you're not going to trade a Dominguez for him, especially not a Peraza, Volpe. I mean, those guys, I don't think any of them would be of return for the Pirates. So I think he's somebody to keep an eye on because you could maybe get some of your guys that are on the 40-man roster crunch that you're going to need to trade anyway. You kind of package them together. I mean, it's going to hurt. Don't get me wrong. You're going to have to trade some big names, but I don't think it's going to be as much as it would have been if you traded for him, let's say, in December or January.
Absolutely. And the Yankees right now, I mean, one of the few complaints people have about them is that they have not played anybody, which again is not their fault because you can only play who's in front of you. Like starting next week, we have a fun stretch here coming up for them. They have a series against Tampa at home, and they go to Toronto and Tampa, and they have a 4-game series at home against Houston here. So, what do you think that stretch will tell us about them?
I mean, this is what you asked for. Like you said, you could only do so much with the teams in front of you. I mean, that's all you could ask for. You can't say, "Oh, I want to play the top teams all the time." They've played the competition that they were given. They've run through them for the most part, and now it's time to see really where they stack up. I mean, Toronto, Tampa, Houston, this is going to be a tough stretch, but this is where you see what the Yankees are made of. I mean, is this pitching legit? This is where they're going to prove it now going against these teams. And granted, I know the Yankees played Toronto a bunch and they played Tampa already, but this is a stretch where you're playing very good teams on a nightly basis. So it's going to be over a long stretch of time. The hitting's going to go against better pitching, obviously. It's definitely going to be a tell for where the Yankees really stand. They're playing. I think it's going to be positive even coming out of these series with these teams.
Yeah, and right now they have a sizable lead in their division. We're recording on June 6th before they begin their series at Minnesota this week. They're up 7.5 on Toronto, 8 on Tampa Bay. But of these two teams, who do you think would be the bigger threat to them in the long run?
I know Toronto got a lot of the hype coming into this season, and justifiably. I mean, they put together a really strong lineup. They're piecing together their pitching year by year, and they've performed well. Like you said, they're in second place, right behind the Yankees. I still always, in the back of my mind, keep Tampa as that problem team. I mean, no matter who's on that roster, they can have a complete turnover, and it seems like they just know how to put the right pieces in place to compete. And I think they're going to be a team that lingers on. They're only, I think a half game behind Toronto, you said, at this point. So they're going to be fighting for it. Toronto, again, like you said, they're tough. They have a lot of star power. They're going to be a team to keep an eye on. But I always lean towards the Rays just because Kevin Cash knows how to get the best out of that roster no matter who's on it. So if I had to pick one team, I'm going to go with Tampa.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun in New York this summer because, I mean, Yankees are the best record in the American League right now. The Mets are the best record in the National League. When you get to Citi Field after the All-Star break, these two teams meet for the first time, the price of those tickets could be through the roof.
Oh, I mean, good luck trying to go to those games. It's going to be fantastic. I mean, as it is, it's going to be expensive just because of the teams that are playing. But like you said, the Mets have been impressive despite their injury issues, especially, with DeGrom and Scherzer, and they're still winning. I mean, it's been fantastic for them. Like we've talked about this whole call, the Yankees have really been able to put everything together despite some injury hiccups as well. It's great to see. I love seeing New York teams thriving, and that's what both these teams have been doing in spades. So, like you said, July is going to be fun to see.
July will be fun to see. Always fun to see. Maybe we'll even get the dream of having them play in the World Series again. We'll see if that happens. Dan, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can people keep up with your Yankee insights on Twitter?
Yeah, right now I'm just staying active on Twitter at Dan J Federico. Follow me there. Going to be writing some things over the summer as we go along, so just keep an eye out for that. But as of now, you can catch me on Twitter. Mike, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a good one.